I'm here to help you fall asleep tonight. Before we begin, take a moment to tell me, where are you listening from? And what time is it there right now? Now, get cozy and let your shoulders drop. The bus breathes out a long, satisfied sigh as it comes to rest at the small mountain station. Through the rain-streaked windows, you can see the wooden shelter where a handful of people wait, their shoulders hunched against the gentle downpour that has been falling since dawn. The driver, a woman with kind eyes and graying hair tucked beneath a knitted cap, turns to survey her passengers with the easy familiarity of someone who has made this route countless times. You settle deeper into your seat, third row back, window side, and watch as new passengers climb aboard, shaking droplets from their jackets and folding umbrellas with the practiced efficiency of mountain dwellers who know rain like an old friend. The fabric of your seat is worn soft from years of travelers, the deep blue upholstery faded to the color of twilight sky. Beneath you, the cushion has molded itself to accommodate countless journeys, and it cradles you now with a gentle, welcoming comfort. A woman with silver-streaked hair takes the seat across the aisle, settling a cloth bag of what might be fresh bread on her lap. The scent drifts over yeast and flour and something faintly sweet, like honey or golden raisins. Behind you, an older man unfolds a newspaper with the soft rustle of well-handled pages, and somewhere toward the back, someone is quietly humming a melody you almost recognize, something that speaks of old folk songs and evening firesides. The driver adjusts her mirrors with slow, methodical care, and you hear the familiar mechanical wheeze as the bus doors fold closed. The engine settles into its steady rhythm. Not the harsh roar of highway travel, but the gentler purr of a vehicle designed for winding roads and unhurried schedules. Through the floor, you feel the subtle vibration that will be your constant companion for the next several hours, a sensation that somehow manages to be both present and soothing, like the purr of a very large, very contented cat. Outside your window, the mountain station recedes as the bus begins its slow navigation through the valley town. Rain continues its gentle percussion against the glass, creating rivulets that catch and scatter the muted light of the overcast afternoon. The droplets trace lazy paths downward, some joining with others to form larger streams, some clinging stubbornly to the same spot as if reluctant to continue their journey earthward. The town slides past in a series of gentle impressions. A bakery with golden light spilling from its windows, an elderly man walking a small dog beneath a large black umbrella, children's bicycles leaning against a porch railing, their seats darkened with collected rainwater. Everything moves at the unhurried pace of a place where weather is simply another element of daily life, neither fought against nor complained about, but simply accepted with the patience of those who understand that mountains make their own rules about such things. As the bus leaves the last of the town's buildings behind, the road begins its gradual ascent into the mountains proper. The pavement curves gently upward, following the natural contours of the landscape rather than forcing its way through. Here, the rain has transformed the world into something soft and dreamlike. The trees, tall pines and firs that crowd close to the roadside, glisten with moisture, their needles heavy with accumulated droplets that occasionally release in small, silvery cascades. You rest your forehead against the cool glass of the window and let your eyes drift across the passing landscape. The rhythm of the bus creates a gentle swaying motion, a subtle rocking that seems designed to quiet the mind and ease away the sharp edges of everyday concerns. The sound of the rain against the windows has become a constant presence now, not demanding attention but providing a steady, reassuring backdrop to the journey. The air inside the bus has taken on the particular quality of shared, comfortable space. It carries the faint scent of damp wool from jackets and scarves, the lingering aroma of someone's thermos of coffee, and that indefinable smell of well-maintained public transport, not unpleasant, but lived in, familiar, somehow trustworthy. The heating system whispers quietly, providing just enough warmth to counter the coolness of the rain-washed air outside. A few seats ahead, someone has opened a book, and you can hear the soft whisper of turning pages. The sound blends with the rhythm of the rain and the gentle rumble of the engine to create a kind of natural symphony of travel, a composition written by the movement of the bus through landscape and weather. Your fellow passengers seem to have settled into the particular quiet that comes with longer journeys, that understanding that this time is separate from the hurried pace of destinations and schedules. The road continues its steady climb, and now the views from your window begin to open up. Through the rain, you catch glimpses of valleys spreading below, their details softened by the weather into impressionistic washes of green and gray. The mountains themselves seem to emerge and recede in the mist like sleeping giants, their peaks occasionally visible through breaks in the clouds before disappearing again behind veils of rain and vapor. The bus navigates a series of gentle switchbacks, the driver handling the curves with the smooth confidence of long experience. Each turn reveals new perspectives on the landscape, a meadow where rain has collected in small, temporary pools that reflect the gray sky like scattered mirrors. A cluster of wooden buildings with smoke rising from their chimneys to mix with the low-hanging clouds. A small waterfall that has been transformed by the rain from a modest stream into something more dramatic, though still gentle in its mountain context. You become aware of the layers of sound that surround you. There's the rain, of course, constant but never overwhelming, like nature's own version of white noise. Beneath that, the steady purr of the engine, occasionally shifting tone as the driver navigates steeper grades or eases around curves. The bus itself contributes its own quiet symphony, the soft hiss of the heating system, the occasional creak of settling metal and plastic, the whisper of tires on wet asphalt. Inside the passenger compartment, human sounds blend seamlessly with the mechanical and natural ones. The soft rustle of someone adjusting their position in their seat, the quiet clearing of a throat, the almost inaudible sound of someone breathing deeply in what might be sleep or simply deep relaxation. These sounds don't intrude on the peaceful atmosphere but rather contribute to it, creating a sense of shared journey and comfortable companionship. The woman across the aisle has taken out some knitting, a soft, cream-colored yarn that she works with quiet expertise. The needles make the tiniest clicking sounds as they move, a gentle percussion that somehow harmonizes perfectly with the rain. Her movements are economical and practiced, and watching her work becomes almost meditative. Each stitch flows into the next with a rhythm that seems to mirror the steady progress of the bus itself. As the afternoon deepens, the light outside takes on a different quality. The rain continues, but now it seems to glow faintly with the diffused illumination of the hidden sun working its way toward evening. The mountains around you have become more dramatically present, rising on both sides of the road like the walls of a vast, natural cathedral. Their slopes, darkened by rain and heavy with mist, create a sense of enclosure that feels protective rather than confining. The bus passes through a small hamlet. Perhaps a dozen buildings clustered around what might once have been a crossroads, but now serves mainly as a place where the mountain road pauses to acknowledge human habitation. Warm light glows from windows, and you glimpse the suggestion of daily life continuing peacefully despite, or perhaps because of, the rain. Someone is moving about in a kitchen, visible as a shadow against yellow curtains. A dog lies curled on a covered porch, completely unbothered by the weather. These brief glimpses of human life nestled into the mountain landscape create a feeling of connection, of being part of something larger than the individual journey. The bus serves as a link between these scattered places, carrying not just passengers but news, packages, the simple acknowledgement that even in the most remote places, people continue their lives with the same basic rhythms of work and rest, connection and solitude. The temperature inside the bus has reached a perfect equilibrium, warm enough to be comfortable, but not so warm as to be stuffy. The combination of the gentle heat, the rhythmic motion, and the sound of rain creates an almost cocoon-like environment. Your body begins to release the tension it didn't even realize it was carrying, muscles settling into the supportive embrace of your seat, breathing deepening into the natural rhythm that comes with complete relaxation. Outside, the landscape continues to unfold in an endless series of gentle revelations. A stream, swollen with rainwater, runs parallel to the road for a while, its surface broken by the drops that continue to fall. The water moves with purpose but without haste, winding between moss-covered rocks and beneath small bridges of weathered wood. Occasionally, the stream disappears behind a stand of trees, only to reappear further along, like an old friend who walks alongside but sometimes takes their own path. The rain has intensified slightly, not to the point of being heavy, but enough to create more dramatic patterns on the windows. The droplets now race each other down the glass in more elaborate configurations, joining and separating in ways that seem almost choreographed. The sound against the roof has deepened too, becoming more of a presence, though still thoroughly gentle and soothing. A passenger near the front of the bus opens a thermos, and the smell of hot tea or coffee drifts back through the compartment. It's a homey, comforting scent that mingles with the other subtle aromas to create an atmosphere of domestic tranquility. Someone else unwraps what sounds like a sandwich, the paper crinkling softly. These small evidences of human care and preparation for the journey add to the sense of this being time set apart from ordinary schedules and concerns. The road continues its patient climb into the mountains, and now you begin to notice how the vegetation is changing. The trees are taller here, their trunks straight and strong, their branches heavy with the accumulated moisture of countless mountain storms. Beneath them, ferns spread in lush carpets, their fronds bright green and glistening with rain. The forest floor appears soft and thick with decades of fallen needles and leaves, creating a natural cushion that seems to absorb sound and movement alike. Every so often, the bus rounds a curve and a vista opens up that takes your breath away, not with dramatic suddenness, but with the slow revelation of beauty that comes from this particular combination of weather and landscape. Through the rain, mountains layer themselves into the distance like overlapping watercolor washes, each range a little paler than the one before, until the farthest peaks blend almost imperceptibly with the rain-laden sky. The bus driver navigates these mountain curves with a steady hand, never rushing, always seeming to anticipate the road's next turn or rise. Her movements at the wheel are economical and sure, and there's something deeply reassuring about being in the hands of someone who knows this route so well, who has traveled these roads in all weathers and all seasons, who understands exactly how much speed to carry into each curve, and when to let the bus's own momentum carry it up the next grade. As the afternoon continues its gentle progression toward evening, the quality of light inside the bus becomes even more intimate. The windows, beaded with rain, diffuse what illumination filters through the clouds into something soft and warm. It's the kind of light that makes everything seem slightly dreamlike, where edges soften and colors become richer and more saturated. You notice that several of your fellow passengers have settled into the particular kind of quiet that comes with long journeys through beautiful places. The man with the newspaper has folded it and now simply gazes out his window, his expression peaceful and contemplative. The woman with the knitting has paused in her work to watch the landscape pass by, her hands resting quietly in her lap. Even the soft humming from the back of the bus has faded into comfortable silence. This shared quiet feels intentional rather than empty. It's the silence of people who have allowed themselves to be fully present in the moment, to let the combination of movement, weather, and landscape work its particular magic on the restless energies of daily life. The bus has become a kind of moving meditation chamber, where the ordinary boundaries between self and environment begin to dissolve in the most gentle and natural way. The rain continues its steady benediction on the journey, neither increasing nor decreasing, but maintaining its perfect intensity for this kind of travel. It's hard to imagine wanting to be anywhere else at this moment, or for the weather to be anything other than exactly what it is. The rain has transformed the journey from simple transportation into something approaching pilgrimage. Not in any religious sense, but in the way it has created space for reflection, for the kind of deep noticing that ordinary life so rarely permits. The mountains through which you're traveling seem ancient and patient, unimpressed by the passage of buses or seasons or decades. They rise around the road with the easy confidence of features that have weathered countless storms and will weather countless more. The rain that falls on them today is just another drop in the vast cycle of water and weather that has shaped these peaks and valleys for millennia. There's something deeply peaceful about being part of this larger rhythm, even briefly, even as a passenger on a bus following a road that represents just the tiniest fraction of human presence in this vast landscape. As the bus continues its steady ascent, you begin to notice subtle changes in the air pressure that signal increasing elevation. Your ears pop gently, and when you swallow, there's a slight difference in the way sound reaches you. The rain, if anything, seems more present at this altitude, as if the bus is now traveling through the lower reaches of the clouds themselves. The forest outside has become more dramatic, with trees that seem older and more substantial, their trunks disappearing upward into the mist. Between them, you catch glimpses of mountainsides that vanish into the gray-white obscurity of rain and cloud. The sense of being enveloped by something vast and ancient becomes even stronger, creating a feeling that's simultaneously humbling and comforting. The bus passes a small turnout where a few cars are parked, their occupants presumably enjoying the mountain views despite the weather. Through the rain-blurred windows, you can see figures standing at what must be a scenic overlook, some holding umbrellas, others simply accepting the gentle soaking as part of the experience. There's something admirable about their determination to witness whatever beauty the mountains are offering, regardless of weather conditions. Inside the bus, the atmosphere has reached a kind of perfect equilibrium. The temperature, the sound levels, the quality of light, the gentle motion, everything has combined to create an environment that seems designed for the deepest kind of relaxation. Your breathing has synchronized with the rhythm of the bus, and you realize that for the first time in weeks, maybe months, your mind has completely let go of its usual preoccupations with schedules and responsibilities and future concerns. The woman across the aisle has resumed her knitting, but even more slowly now, as if she too has been affected by the profound tranquility of the journey. Her needles move with a rhythm that seems to match the pace of the windshield wipers, creating a visual and auditory harmony that adds another layer to the peaceful symphony of travel sounds. The rain has settled into what feels like a permanent presence, not a weather event that will pass, but simply the natural condition of this place at this time. The mountains seem to be designed for rain, their forests and streams and moss-covered rocks all perfectly adapted to this kind of persistent, gentle moisture. The bus, too, seems designed for exactly this kind of journey, its steady progress up the winding road as natural and unhurried as the flow of water down the mountainsides. You let your gaze drift from the near landscape to the far mountains, then back to the interior of the bus, then out to the middle distance where trees and mist create constantly shifting patterns of visibility and concealment. Nothing demands your attention. Everything invites gentle observation. The journey has created its own time zone, separate from the clocks and schedules of ordinary life, where minutes and hours become irrelevant compared to the simple experience of moving through beautiful country and peaceful companionship with fellow travelers. The sound of the rain has become so constant that it might as easily be silence. It provides an acoustic backdrop that seems to encourage the mind to settle into deeper and deeper levels of quiet. Combined with the warmth of the bus, the gentle swaying motion, and the hypnotic pattern of droplets on the windows, it creates conditions that are almost irresistibly conducive to the kind of profound relaxation that restores something essential in the human spirit. As the afternoon continues its gradual slide toward evening, the landscape outside begins to take on an even more ethereal quality. The rain and mist work together to create effects that are constantly changing but never dramatic, always subtle and dreamlike. Mountains appear and disappear like thoughts at the edge of consciousness. Trees emerge from the gray air only to fade back into it moments later. The road itself seems to materialize just far enough ahead to guide the bus safely forward, then dissolve back into the general softness of the rain-soaked afternoon. The driver navigates these conditions with the same steady confidence she's shown throughout the journey, her movements at the wheel economical and sure. There's never any sense of urgency or concern, just the patient application of skill and experience to the simple task of moving safely through the mountains. Her presence at the front of the bus contributes to the overall atmosphere of security and peace that has settled over the journey. Other passengers have found their own ways of engaging with the travel experience. Some continue to watch the landscape pass by, their expressions soft and contemplative. Others have closed their eyes and let themselves be carried along by the motion and sound of the bus. A few have taken out books or journals, though their attention seems divided between their reading and the constantly changing views outside the windows. The rhythmic sound of rain on the roof has become almost musical, a composition that changes subtly as the bus moves through different elevations and exposures. Sometimes the sound is more concentrated, as when passing under overhanging trees. Sometimes it spreads out into a broader wash of white noise as the bus crosses more exposed sections of road. Always it maintains its essential gentleness, never becoming harsh or overwhelming, but remaining the perfect acoustic environment for this kind of meditative travel. Through your window, you watch small streams that have been created or swollen by the rain as they make their way down the mountainsides. They follow the natural contours of the land, winding between rocks and around trees, gathering volume as they descend. Some disappear into culverts beneath the road, only to emerge on the other side to continue their journey toward the valleys below. The water moves with purpose but without haste, finding the path of least resistance with the same kind of natural wisdom that seems to guide the bus along its winding route. The forest through which you're traveling has taken on an almost primordial character in the rain and mist. The trees, darkened by moisture and partially obscured by low-hanging clouds, seem to stretch back into some earlier version of the world, before roads and buses and the measured time of human schedules. Yet there's nothing threatening about this wildness. Instead, it feels welcoming, protective, as if the mountains are offering shelter to all who travel through them with appropriate respect and patience. The bus continues its steady climb, and now you begin to sense that you're approaching some kind of high point in the journey. The road curves more frequently, and through breaks in the mist, you catch glimpses of valleys spreading far below. The rain continues, but the perspective it frames is increasingly dramatic. You're traveling through cloudland now, where the boundary between sky and earth becomes fluid and uncertain. At this elevation, the rain seems to come from all directions at once, not falling so much as simply present in the air itself. The bus moves through it like a ship through fog, steady and sure but also somehow reverent, as if acknowledging the power and mystery of the elements through which it passes. The heater works a little harder now to maintain the comfortable temperature inside, and you become more aware of the contrast between the intimate warmth of the passenger compartment and the vast, cool wetness of the mountain weather. A sign appears through the rain and mist, the name of a mountain pass, elevation marked in numbers that confirm what your body has already sensed about the altitude. The bus navigates the final approach to the pass with the same steady patience it has shown throughout the climb, neither rushing to reach the summit nor lingering unnecessarily on the steeper grades. And then, almost without ceremony, you're at the top. The road levels out, and through the rain-blurred windows, you sense rather than clearly see the vastness that surrounds the high point of your journey. The mist and rain create their own landscape up here, one where visibility extends only a few dozen yards in any direction, but where the quality of space suggests enormous distances just beyond the veil of weather. The bus pauses at a small pullout, perhaps to let the engine cool or simply to acknowledge the significance of the moment. Other passengers look up from their books or their contemplation to peer out into the gray-white obscurity that surrounds the pass. No one speaks, but there's a shared recognition that this is a special place, even if the weather prevents you from seeing it in the conventional sense. Instead of views, the pass offers something else: the pure experience of being at a high place in the mountains during a rainstorm, of being safely enclosed in warmth and dryness while the elements demonstrate their power and presence just outside the windows. The rain on the roof sounds different here, perhaps because of the elevation, perhaps because of the wind that comes with mountain passes. It's still gentle, still soothing, but it carries undertones that suggest the vast spaces and thin air of the high country. After a few minutes, the bus resumes its journey, beginning the gradual descent down the other side of the pass. The road curves away from the high point and starts its patient navigation of the switchbacks that will carry you down into the next valley. The rain continues, but now it seems to be helping rather than hindering the journey, washing the road clean and creating small waterfalls at every cut in the hillside. The descent opens up new perspectives on the mountain landscape. Through the persistent rain and mist, you begin to catch glimpses of the valley that lies ahead. Hints of green fields, suggestions of a river winding between hills, the possibility of human habitation adapted to this landscape of water and elevation. The bus takes the downhill curves with the same steady confidence it showed on the ascent, the driver's skill evident in the smooth way she manages both the grade and the wet conditions. As you descend, the character of the forest begins to change again. The trees seem younger here, more varied in species, and the understory is richer and more diverse. The rain has transformed everything into a celebration of green. Dozens of different shades and textures of foliage, all glistening with moisture, all participating in the slow dance of growth and renewal that the persistent precipitation makes possible. Small clearings appear in the forest, some natural, others clearly the result of human activity from decades past. In these openings, the rain has created temporary meadows where water stands in shallow pools that reflect the gray sky like scattered mirrors. The overall effect is of a landscape that has been designed specifically for rain, where every element, from the shape of leaves to the slope of hills, seems perfectly adapted to making the most of persistent moisture. The bus passes a small wooden bridge that spans a creek swollen with rainwater. Through your window, you can see the stream rushing beneath the road, its waters dark with tannins from the forest floor, but clear and clean-looking as it hurries toward the valley below. The sound of running water adds another layer to the acoustic environment of your journey, a liquid counterpoint to the steady percussion of rain on the bus roof. Inside the passenger compartment, the atmosphere has deepened into something approaching the sacred. The combination of motion, weather, landscape, and shared quiet has created a space where ordinary consciousness seems to settle into something more fundamental and peaceful. Your fellow passengers have mostly abandoned their books and knitting and newspapers, choosing instead to simply be present with the experience of traveling through this rain-soaked mountain landscape. The woman across the aisle catches your eye and offers a small smile that seems to acknowledge the special nature of what you're all experiencing together. It's not the forced friendliness of strangers in an awkward situation, but the natural recognition that sometimes passes between people who find themselves sharing something unexpectedly meaningful. The smile says, "Yes, this is extraordinary, isn't it? Yes, we're lucky to be here, in this place, at this time, with this weather and this view and this perfect pace of travel." The bus continues its descent, and gradually the rain begins to ease slightly, not stopping, but shifting to an even gentler intensity that seems more like mist than actual precipitation. The effect is to make the landscape even more dreamlike, with distances that seem to expand and contract depending on the density of the moisture in the air. Sometimes you can see for miles down the valley. Sometimes the world contracts to just the trees immediately beside the road. This variability in visibility adds another dimension to the meditative quality of the journey. Just as you settle into contemplation of a distant view, the mist closes in and redirects your attention to closer details, the way water beads on pine needles, the subtle colors in moss-covered rocks, the graceful curves of fern fronds heavy with accumulated moisture. The rain and mist create a natural rhythm of expansion and contraction, distance and intimacy, that seems designed to prevent the mind from becoming too fixed on any single aspect of the experience. A small town begins to appear through the rain ahead, just a few buildings at first, then more, until it becomes clear that the bus is approaching a proper settlement nestled in the valley. The buildings are designed for this climate, with steep roofs to shed rain and snow, deep overhangs to protect doorways and windows, and colors that seem chosen to harmonize with the muted palette of a landscape where sunshine is precious and rain is constant. Warm lights glow from windows, and smoke rises from chimneys to blend with the low-hanging clouds. The town looks like a place where people have learned to find coziness and comfort despite, or perhaps because of, weather that might seem challenging to those from drier climates. There's something deeply appealing about the way these mountain communities have adapted themselves to work with rather than against their environment. The bus navigates the town's main street at its customary measured pace, giving you time to observe the details of daily life continuing peacefully in the rain. A woman hurries between buildings with a basket covered by a cloth. Children play under the shelter of a school's deep eaves. An elderly man sits on a covered porch with a cup of what might be coffee or tea, watching the rain with the patient satisfaction of someone who has long since made peace with weather. These glimpses of human life adapted to mountain weather create a sense of rightness, of people living in harmony with their environment rather than in opposition to it. The rain that might seem like an obstacle to those focused on speed and efficiency becomes, in this context, simply another element of daily life to be acknowledged and accommodated and even appreciated for the particular gifts it brings. The bus makes a brief stop in the town, and a few passengers get off while others board. The new arrivals bring with them the fresh scent of rain-washed air and the quiet energy of people who have been waiting patiently for their turn to be part of this mobile sanctuary of peace and slow travel. They settle into their seats with the same quiet consideration shown by the passengers who have been aboard for the longer journey, quickly adapting to the contemplative atmosphere that has developed over the miles. As the bus prepares to leave the town, you realize that the rain has created a kind of intimacy between passengers that might not have developed under different circumstances. Shared experience of beautiful weather has a way of connecting strangers, creating a temporary community of those who happen to be in the right place at the right time to witness something special. You don't need to speak with your fellow travelers to feel this connection. It exists in the shared glances, the collective sighs of satisfaction at particularly lovely views, the communal quiet that is settled over the passenger compartment. The bus resumes its journey, now following the floor of the valley where a river runs parallel to the road. The water is high from the rain, moving fast but not violently, carrying bits of forest debris that speak of the ongoing conversation between the mountains and the weather. Along the riverbank, you can see where the water has temporarily claimed additional territory, creating shallow backwaters where the rain continues to add its contribution to the seasonal flood. This is flooding of the gentle, natural sort that mountain ecosystems have evolved to accommodate and even depend upon. The temporarily expanded river spreads nutrients from the high country across the valley floor, recharges groundwater, and creates habitat for countless forms of life that thrive in the interface between water and land. Watching it, You gain a deeper appreciation for the role of rain in the larger cycles that sustain these mountain communities, both human and natural. The road follows the river's curves, and the bus driver continues to navigate with the same steady skill she's shown throughout the journey. The rain has made the asphalt gleam like dark glass, but never seems to present challenges that require dramatic changes in speed or approach. This is clearly country where rain is expected, where roads and vehicles and drivers are all adapted to conditions that might seem exotic to those from drier regions. As the afternoon continues its gentle progression toward evening, the quality of light inside the bus becomes even more intimate and warm. The windows, still beaded with rain, diffuse whatever illumination filters through the clouds into something soft and golden, creating an atmosphere that seems to encourage the deepest kind of relaxation. Several passengers have frankly dozed off, lulled by the perfect combination of warmth, motion, and sound. You find your own eyelids growing heavy, not from fatigue, but from the profound peace that has settled over the journey. The rain continues its gentle percussion on the roof. The engine maintains its steady purr, and the bus sways slightly as it follows the curves of the valley road. Everything conspires to create conditions that seem designed to quiet the restless energies of ordinary consciousness and allow something deeper and more fundamental to emerge. Outside, the landscape continues to reveal itself in layers through the persistent rain. Mountains rise on both sides of the valley, their slopes disappearing into mist and cloud, their presence felt as much as seen. The river beside the road chatters quietly to itself as it carries its burden of rainwater towards some distant confluence with larger waters. The forest that covers the mountainside seems to drink in the moisture with the deep satisfaction of vegetation that has evolved specifically for this climate. The bus passes through another small settlement, this one even more perfectly adapted to its rainy environment. The buildings seem to grow out of the landscape itself, their materials and colors and proportions all chosen to harmonize with a world where water is the dominant element. Gardens overflow with plants that clearly thrive in persistent moisture, and paths are designed to manage runoff while still providing practical routes between buildings. You notice that the people you glimpse through the rain seem unhurried, moving with the same steady patience that characterizes the bus journey itself. A man repairs something under the shelter of a carport, his movements economical and considered. Children play a game that involves jumping between puddles, their laughter audible even through the windows of the bus. An old woman tends plants in pots arranged on a covered porch, her attention focused completely on her task despite the weather. These scenes of daily life continuing peacefully in the rain create a sense of rightness that goes beyond mere adaptation to climate. There's something here about living in rhythm with natural cycles, about finding richness and meaning in conditions that a hurried world might dismiss as obstacles or inconveniences. The rain that has been your constant companion throughout this journey is clearly seen by these mountain communities as a gift rather than a burden. As the bus continues down the valley, you begin to notice how the rain has transformed even the most ordinary elements of the landscape into something approaching art. Fence posts glisten with accumulated moisture, creating vertical lines of light against the muted colors of the fields. Power lines sag gracefully under the weight of collected raindrops, forming elegant curves that seem to echo the natural contours of the hills. Even the road signs, beaded with water, take on a jewel-like quality that transforms purely functional objects into something unexpectedly beautiful. The light inside the bus has taken on an even more golden quality as the afternoon moves toward evening, though the persistent cloud cover makes it difficult to judge the exact time. The rain continues, but now it seems less like weather and more like a permanent feature of this landscape, as essential as the mountains themselves. The sound it makes on the roof has become as natural as breathing, a rhythm that seems to arise from the earth itself rather than from the temporary interaction of atmospheric conditions. Your fellow passengers have settled into what can only be described as a state of collective meditation. The earlier quiet has deepened into something that feels almost sacred, a shared recognition that this journey through rain-soaked mountains has become something more than mere transportation. The bus has transformed into a moving sanctuary where ordinary time and ordinary concerns have been temporarily suspended in favor of pure experience. The woman across the aisle has put her knitting away and now simply sits with her hands folded in her lap, her eyes soft and unfocused as she gazes out at the passing landscape. The man with the newspaper has folded it completely and placed it on the seat beside him, his attention fully given to the present moment. Even the driver seems affected by the profound peace that has settled over the journey, her movements at the wheel economical and graceful, as if she too has been drawn into the meditative rhythm of rain and motion and mountain roads. The bus rounds a long curve, and suddenly the valley opens up into a broader expanse of agricultural land. Through the rain, you can see fields that have been turned into temporary lakes by the persistent precipitation, their surfaces broken by the continuing downpour into constantly shifting patterns of ripples and rings. What might look like flooding to an outsider clearly represents the normal seasonal rhythm to those who work this land, part of the natural cycle of water and weather that makes agriculture possible in this mountain environment. Farm buildings dotting the landscape are all designed to accommodate and even celebrate the rain. Barns have generous roof overhangs that create dry spaces for both animals and equipment. Houses feature deep porches where life can continue comfortably even during the wettest weather. Even the livestock seem unbothered by the persistent moisture, standing peacefully in fields where other animals might seek shelter. The road follows the edge of this agricultural valley, and the bus driver continues to navigate with the same steady confidence, her pace unhurried but purposeful. The rain has made the entire landscape glisten like something newly created, every surface reflecting light in ways that transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. Puddles become mirrors, fence lines become ribbons of light, and even the simplest farm buildings take on an architectural dignity that speaks of human adaptation to challenging but beautiful conditions. As the journey continues, you become increasingly aware of how the rain has created its own microclimate inside the bus. The warmth generated by the heater and the body heat of passengers has combined with the moisture on the windows to create an atmosphere that feels almost tropical in its gentle humidity. It's not uncomfortable, quite the opposite, but it adds another layer to the sense of being in a protected, nurturing environment while traveling through the larger drama of mountain weather. The sound environment inside the bus has also evolved throughout the journey. The rain on the roof continues its gentle percussion, but now it's joined by the subtle sounds of water flowing in the ditches beside the road, the whisper of tires on wet pavement, and the quiet whoosh of air displaced by the bus's passage through the rain-thickened atmosphere. These sounds layer together to create an acoustic environment that seems specifically designed to encourage the deepest kind of relaxation. Through your window, you watch small waterfalls that have appeared on every hillside, temporary features created by the abundance of rain. Some are no more than sheets of water flowing over rock faces, while others have carved small channels that speak of waters that have followed the same path through countless previous storms. All of them contribute to the sense that you're traveling through a landscape that has been temporarily transformed into something even more magical than usual, where every surface has become part of a vast, interconnected system of flowing water. The bus begins to climb again, leaving the valley floor to follow a road that winds up into another range of hills. The rain continues with the same gentle persistence, and now you can see how it's affecting the forest at different elevations. Lower down, the trees are lush and green, their leaves and needles heavy with moisture. Higher up, the forest disappears into mist and cloud, creating the impression that the mountains simply dissolve into the sky at some unknowable altitude. This vertical journey through different zones of visibility and weather adds another dimension to the meditative quality of the bus ride. You're not just traveling horizontally through space, but vertically through layers of atmosphere, each with its own particular relationship to the rain and clouds. The bus becomes a kind of elevator, carrying you through these different levels with the same steady, unhurried progress it has shown throughout the journey. As you climb higher, the temperature inside the bus adjusts automatically, the heating system responding to the cooler air outside without any dramatic changes that might disturb the peaceful atmosphere. The transition is so gradual that you're only aware of it in retrospect, noting that the windows are now more heavily beaded with condensation, that the contrast between the warm interior and the cool mountain air has become more pronounced. The road at this elevation follows the natural contours of the mountainside, curving around spurs and crossing small valleys carved by streams that are now running full with rainwater. Each curve reveals new perspectives on the rain-soaked landscape, new configurations of mist and forest and distant mountains. The views are constantly changing, yet somehow always harmonious, as if the mountains themselves have been designed to provide exactly this kind of gentle, ongoing revelation. A wooden sign appears through the rain, marking the entrance to what must be a national forest or park. The bus passes beneath tall trees that form a natural canopy over the road, their branches so heavy with accumulated rain that occasional drops fall onto the bus roof with sounds distinctly different from the lighter patter of rain falling directly from the sky. These larger drops create an irregular percussion that adds complexity to the acoustic environment without disturbing its essential peacefulness. The forest here has a cathedral-like quality, with straight trunks rising like columns into the misty canopy above. The understory is rich with ferns and moss, all of it glistening with moisture, all of it participating in the slow dance of growth and decay that makes these mountain ecosystems so remarkably fertile. The rain that might seem like an obstacle to human plans is clearly the lifeblood of this forest, the essential ingredient that makes possible the incredible diversity and abundance of life that surrounds the road. Inside the bus, several passengers have succumbed completely to the soporific effects of the journey. Their gentle breathing adds another layer to the quiet symphony of travel sounds, creating an atmosphere of shared rest and rejuvenation. There's something deeply peaceful about being in the company of strangers who have all been equally affected by the combination of rain, motion, and mountain landscape, all allowing themselves to be carried along by the bus's steady progress through this transformed world. The woman across the aisle has closed her eyes, but her posture suggests awareness rather than sleep, as if she's using the journey as an opportunity for the kind of deep meditation that ordinary life rarely permits. Her hands rest quietly in her lap, and her breathing has synchronized with the rhythm of the bus in a way that seems to embody the perfect integration of human consciousness with the natural rhythms of travel and weather. The bus emerges from the densest part of the forest into a more open landscape where the rain has created temporary meadows in every depression and flat area. These pools reflect the gray sky like scattered pieces of fallen cloud, creating a landscape that seems to exist at the boundary between earth and heaven. The effect is enhanced by the persistent mist that blurs the distinction between ground and air, making everything seem to participate in the same fluid, ever-changing medium. A small wooden bridge carries the road across a stream that has been transformed by the rain from a modest mountain creek into something more substantial. Through the bus windows, you can hear the water rushing beneath the bridge, its voice deeper and more confident than it would be in drier seasons. The sound adds another element to the complex acoustic environment of the journey, a liquid bass note that harmonizes perfectly with the higher-pitched percussion of rain on the bus roof. The road begins another series of gentle switchbacks, climbing toward what might be another pass or simply a high ridge that will provide views into the next valley. The driver takes these curves with the same smooth confidence she's shown throughout the journey, her movements at the wheel economical and sure. There's never any sense of struggle or difficulty, just the steady application of skill and experience to the task of navigating mountain roads in wet weather. As the bus climbs higher, the character of the rain begins to change again. It becomes lighter, more mist-like, but also more present, as if you're now traveling through the lower reaches of the clouds themselves. Visibility decreases to just a few dozen yards in any direction, creating an intimate, cocoon-like environment where the bus seems to be floating through a gray-white void punctuated only by the occasional tree or rock formation looming out of the mist. This reduction in visibility has the paradoxical effect of making the interior of the bus feel even more spacious and comfortable. Without the distraction of distant views, attention naturally turns inward to the immediate sensory experience of warmth, motion, and sound. The rain on the windows takes on an almost hypnotic quality, the patterns of water droplets creating constantly changing mandalas that seem designed to quiet the restless energies of ordinary thought. The heating system whispers quietly, maintaining the perfect temperature balance that has made this journey so conducive to deep relaxation. The air inside the bus has taken on a particular quality, warm and slightly humid, carrying the subtle sense of damp wool and human presence, but also something indefinable that speaks of mountain air and rain-washed forests. It's an atmosphere that seems to encourage the kind of deep breathing that comes with complete physical and mental relaxation. Through the mist, occasional features of the landscape appear and disappear like elements in a dream. A large boulder, dark with rain and partially covered with moss. A grove of aspens, their pale trunks ghostly in the reduced visibility. A small clearing where the mist is pooled like a temporary lake of air. These brief glimpses create a sense of traveling through a landscape that exists at the edge of the visible world, where ordinary rules about space and distance become fluid and uncertain. The bus reaches what must be the high point of this section of the journey, though the mist makes it impossible to be certain. The road levels out, and there's a sense of space opening up around you, even though you can't see more than a few yards in any direction. The driver knows exactly where she is, navigating by landmarks invisible to passengers, following a route she has traveled so many times that she could probably drive it blindfolded. At this elevation, the rain has become something even more subtle, not quite mist, not quite precipitation, but a kind of atmospheric presence that seems to arise from the air itself. It coats the windows in a film so fine that individual droplets are barely visible, yet the sound it makes on the roof continues, a whisper so soft it's almost subliminal. The bus moves through this ethereal environment like a ship through fog, steady and sure but also somehow reverent. The road begins its descent into the next valley, and gradually the mist starts to thin. The first sign is the appearance of trees that had been completely invisible just moments before, their shapes emerging from the gray-white void like developing photographs. Then the road itself becomes visible for greater distances ahead, no longer materializing just in time for the bus to follow it, but stretching out in curves that disappear and reappear as the mist shifts and flows. This gradual return of visibility creates a sense of emerging from one world into another, of completing some kind of passage through a realm that exists between the ordinary landscapes of valleys and peaks. The mist that had enclosed the bus so completely begins to break up into wisps and streamers, revealing glimpses of the mountainsides that had been hidden just minutes before. As the bus descends, the rain intensifies slightly, returning to the gentle but more substantial precipitation that had characterized earlier portions of the journey. The sound on the roof becomes more pronounced again, and the patterns on the windows resume their complex, ever-changing dance. It's as if the bus is returning to a more familiar version of the weather, the one that has been enriched by the passage through the high mist. The forest at this elevation is different from what you encountered on the other side of the ridge. The trees are more varied in species, and the understory is rich with plants that clearly thrive in the persistent moisture. Everything glistens with accumulated rain, from the smallest fern fronds to the largest tree trunks, creating a landscape that seems to have been polished to a high shine by the weather. A small wooden cabin appears through the trees, smoke rising from its chimney to blend with the low-hanging clouds. Warm light glows from its windows, and you can imagine the cozy interior where someone is waiting out the rain in comfort, perhaps with a book and a cup of tea and the sound of the weather as a backdrop to quiet evening activities. The sight of this human habitation nestled so peacefully into the rain-soaked forest adds to the sense that this is a landscape where people and weather have learned to coexist in harmony. The bus follows the road as it winds down through the forest, and gradually more signs of human presence begin to appear. A mailbox at the end of a gravel drive that disappears into the trees. A small bridge crossing a creek that runs full and fast with rainwater. A wooden fence that follows the road for a short distance before turning to mark the boundary of some invisible property. All of these human modifications to the landscape seem to have been designed to work with rather than against the rain and the forest, creating a sense of integration rather than opposition. The road levels out as it reaches the floor of the valley, and through the rain you can see the lights of another small town ahead. This settlement is larger than the previous ones, with more buildings and what appears to be a proper main street lined with shops and services. The warm lights spilling from windows create a welcoming glow that seems to promise shelter and community, the kind of place where travelers can rest and refresh themselves before continuing their journeys. As the bus approaches the town, you realize that this may be your destination, or at least a significant stop where many passengers will disembark. The thought brings a slight melancholy, not because the journey has been difficult or uncomfortable, but because it has been so perfectly peaceful that you're reluctant to see it end. The combination of rain, motion, and mountain landscape has created an experience that feels both complete in itself and difficult to replicate in ordinary circumstances. The bus navigates the town's main street, passing shops and cafes where people go about their evening activities despite the continuing rain. You see a bookstore with customers browsing inside, a restaurant where diners sit at tables near windows streaked with rain, a small grocery store where someone is loading purchases into a car parked under an awning. The rain that has been your constant companion throughout the journey is clearly just another element of daily life here, neither preventing normal activities nor requiring dramatic accommodations. The bus pulls into what appears to be the main station for this mountain town, a covered area where passengers can board and disembark without getting soaked. Through the windows, you can see other buses and the suggestion of a waiting area where people sit quietly, some reading, others simply watching the rain fall beyond the shelter of the roof. The scene has the same peaceful, unhurried quality that has characterized the entire journey. Several of your fellow passengers begin to gather their belongings, preparing to disembark. The quiet that has settled over the bus throughout the afternoon is broken by the soft rustle of coats being put on, bags being collected, umbrellas being prepared for deployment. Yet even these sounds of departure maintain the gentle, considerate tone that has marked the entire journey. No one rushes, no one speaks loudly, everyone moves with the same measured consideration that has characterized the bus driver's navigation of the mountain roads. The woman across the aisle stands and reaches for her bag, pausing to look out the window at the rain-soaked town that awaits her. She turns to catch your eye and offers another of those small smiles that seem to acknowledge the shared experience of this extraordinary journey. Her expression suggests gratitude, not just for the ride, but for the opportunity to travel through such beautiful country in such perfect weather, in the company of fellow passengers who understood how to appreciate what they were experiencing. The doors of the bus open with their familiar mechanical wheeze, and the sound of rain immediately becomes more present, no longer filtered through the walls and windows of the passenger compartment. The first passengers to disembark move quickly to the shelter of the station, but their haste seems motivated more by practical consideration than by any desire to escape the rain. Indeed, several pause under the station's roof to look back at the weather with expressions that suggest appreciation rather than annoyance. As passengers disembark, new travelers board for the next segment of the route. They bring with them the fresh scent of rain-washed air and the particular energy of people who have been waiting patiently for their turn to be part of this slow, meditative form of travel. They settle into seats vacated by departing passengers, quickly adapting to the peaceful atmosphere that persists despite the change in personnel. The bus driver takes a brief break, stepping outside to check something on the exterior of the vehicle. Even this short exposure to the rain doesn't seem to concern her. She moves with the same unhurried confidence she's shown throughout the journey, clearly someone who has long since made peace with mountain weather. When she returns to her seat, she brings with her a few drops of rainwater that glisten on her jacket, physical evidence of the world outside that has been your constant companion throughout the afternoon. As the bus prepares to continue its journey, you realize that new passengers are now experiencing the same gradual transformation that affected you and your fellow travelers during the climb over the mountain pass. The combination of gentle motion, persistent rain, and the intimate atmosphere of the bus begins to work its particular magic on their restless energies, drawing them into the same peaceful state that has made this journey so restorative. The doors close again, and the bus resumes its route through the mountain town. The rain continues its gentle benediction, and the sound of it on the roof immediately reestablishes the acoustic environment that has become so familiar and comforting. The bus moves through streets lined with buildings designed for this climate, past gardens that clearly thrive in persistent moisture, beyond windows where warm light suggests lives being lived in comfortable harmony with weather that others might find challenging. Leaving the town behind, the bus enters another stretch of mountain road, this one following a different river through a valley that opens up new perspectives on the rain-soaked landscape. The water beside the road is high and fast, carrying the accumulated precipitation from countless hillsides and forest slopes towards some distant confluence with larger waters. The sound of running water adds its voice to the symphony of travel sounds, creating an even richer acoustic environment for the continuation of your journey. The afternoon has progressed toward evening, though the persistent cloud cover makes it difficult to judge the exact time. The light inside the bus has taken on an even warmer, more golden quality, and the contrast between the cozy interior and the cool, wet world outside has become more pronounced. The heating system continues to maintain the perfect temperature balance, creating conditions that seem specifically designed to encourage the deepest kind of relaxation and reflection. As the bus settles into the rhythm of this new segment of the journey, you allow yourself to sink even deeper into the meditative state that the rain and motion have made possible. The sound of water, falling from the sky, running beside the road, flowing beneath bridges, creates a liquid soundtrack that seems to wash away the accumulated tensions and preoccupations of ordinary life. For this time and this place, moving through this rain-transformed landscape, nothing exists except the pure experience of being peacefully carried through beautiful country in perfect weather. The mountains rise around you, their peaks hidden in mist and cloud, their slopes dark with rain-soaked forests. The bus follows the valley road with the same steady confidence, guided by a driver whose skill and experience have transformed what might be challenging conditions into an opportunity for the most peaceful kind of travel. The The rain continues its gentle percussion, the engine maintains its steady purr, and the warm, humid atmosphere inside the passenger compartment cradles you in comfort as the journey continues through the gathering dusk of a perfect mountain afternoon. In this moving sanctuary of warmth and quiet companionship, surrounded by the sound of rain and the gentle motion of careful travel through beautiful country, time seems to have slowed to match the rhythm of weather and landscape rather than the demands of schedules and destinations. The bus carries you forward through the rain-soaked mountains, each mile a gift of peace and restoration, each moment an invitation to settle more deeply into the rare and precious experience of being exactly where you are, exactly when you need to be there, in the company of the rain and the mountains, and the quiet satisfaction of a journey that has become its own destination. The valley through which you're now traveling has a different character from the higher elevations you've crossed. Here, the rain has created a landscape of abundance and fertility, where every available surface supports some form of green life. Moss covers rocks and tree trunks in thick, velvet cushions that glisten with accumulated moisture. Ferns spread in vast colonies beneath the larger trees, their fronds heavy with collected raindrops that occasionally release in small, musical cascades when touched by a breeze or the passage of some small woodland creature. The river that runs alongside the road has become a significant presence in the landscape, its waters dark and swift with the accumulated runoff from countless hillsides and mountain slopes. The sound it makes as it moves over rocks and around bends provides a continuous liquid bass note that harmonizes perfectly with the lighter percussion of rain on the bus roof. Sometimes the road curves close to the water, allowing you to see the complex patterns the current creates as it navigates obstacles and changes in depth. Small bridges carry the road across tributaries that have been swollen by the rain into temporary streams of considerable vigor. Each crossing provides a brief glimpse of water hurrying toward its confluence with the main river, carrying with it the detritus of the forest. Fallen leaves, bits of bark, the occasional branch that speaks of trees giving way to the persistent pressure of wind and weather. These natural offerings to the water cycle create a sense of witnessing the mountains themselves in conversation with the rain. The bus passes a small waterfall that has been transformed by the rain from what must usually be a modest cascade into something approaching dramatic. Water sheets down a rock face and a curtain that catches what little light filters through the clouds, creating momentary prisms and sparkles that appear and disappear as the viewing angle changes with the bus's movement. The sound of falling water adds another layer to the acoustic environment, a higher-pitched counterpoint to the deeper voice of the river. Through the rain-streaked windows, you can see how the persistent moisture has transformed even the most mundane elements of the roadside infrastructure into something approaching art. Guardrails glisten with collected water that forms perfect beads along their length. Road signs become jewel-like with their coating of rain, their reflective surfaces creating small celebrations of light even in the muted illumination of the overcast afternoon. Even the power lines that occasionally cross above the road sag gracefully under the weight of accumulated moisture, forming elegant curves that seem to echo the natural contours of the landscape. A small roadside pull-out appears through the rain, and the bus slows to navigate around a car whose occupants have clearly decided to wait out the heavier precipitation. Through their fogged windows, you can see the suggestion of people inside, perhaps sharing a thermos of something warm, perhaps simply sitting quietly and watching the rain transform the landscape around them. There's something appealing about their decision to pause and acknowledge the weather rather than struggling against it, to make the rain part of their experience rather than an obstacle to it. The forest that covers the mountainsides has taken on an almost primordial quality in the persistent rain. The trees seem older and more substantial, their trunks darkened by moisture and partially obscured by the mist that rises from the warm earth. Beneath them, The understory has become a celebration of every possible shade of green, from the bright, almost electric color of new ferns to the deep, rich emerald of moss that has been growing undisturbed for decades. Inside the bus, the atmosphere has deepened into something that can only be described as profound tranquility. The combination of warmth, gentle motion, and the constant sound of rain has created conditions that seem designed to allow consciousness to settle into its most peaceful configuration. Several passengers have frankly surrendered to sleep, their breathing adding a human element to the quiet symphony of travel sounds. Others remain awake but deeply relaxed, their attention soft and unfocused, allowing the experience of the journey to wash over them without the usual mental commentary that accompanies most activities. The woman across the aisle has taken out her knitting again, but her movements are even slower now, as if the profound peace of the journey has affected even her muscle memory. Each stitch flows into the next with a rhythm that seems to match the gentle swaying of the bus, creating a visual meditation that adds to the overall sense of time, having slowed to match the pace of rain and mountain roads. The bus driver continues to navigate with the same steady skill, her movements at the wheel economical and sure. Occasionally, she adjusts the windshield wipers or makes some small modification to accommodate changing conditions. But these actions are so smoothly integrated into her overall approach to driving that they never disturb the peaceful atmosphere. Her presence at the front of the bus provides a sense of security and competence that allows passengers to surrender completely to the experience of being carried safely through this rain-transformed landscape. As the afternoon progresses toward evening, the quality of light both inside and outside the bus begins to change in subtle ways. The illumination filtering through the rain-heavy clouds takes on a softer, more diffused character, and the contrast between the warm interior of the bus and the cool, wet world outside becomes more pronounced. The heating system adjusts automatically to these changing conditions, maintaining the perfect temperature balance that has made this journey so conducive to deep relaxation. The road begins to climb again, following the natural contours of the valley as it rises toward another ridge or pass. The rain continues with the same gentle persistence, but now it seems to come from multiple directions at once, suggesting that the bus is entering the lower reaches of the cloud layer itself. Visibility decreases gradually, creating an increasing sense of intimacy and enclosure that paradoxically makes the interior of the bus feel more spacious and comfortable. Through the mist and rain, occasional features of the landscape appear and disappear like elements in a half-remembered dream. A group of boulders, dark with moisture and partially covered with lichen that has been nourished by countless seasons of rain. A grove of birch trees, their white bark ghostly in the reduced visibility, their leaves long since fallen to carpet the forest floor with a golden mat that the rain is slowly transforming into rich soil. A small meadow where the mist has pooled like a temporary lake of air, creating the impression of traveling through landscape that exists at the boundary between earth and sky. The bus navigates this ethereal environment with the same steady confidence it has shown throughout the journey, the driver's familiarity with the route allowing her to proceed safely even when visibility is reduced to just a few dozen yards. Her skill in these conditions speaks of years of experience with mountain weather, of an understanding that rain and mist are simply part of the natural environment through which the road passes, neither obstacles to be overcome nor dangers to be feared, but elements to be acknowledged and accommodated with patience and respect. At this elevation, the rain has taken on an even more subtle character, becoming less like precipitation and more like a general moisture that seems to arise from the air itself. It coats the windows in a film so fine that individual droplets are barely visible, yet the sound it makes on the roof continues, now so soft it's almost subliminal, like the whisper of breath or the distant murmur of conversation. The bus moves through this atmospheric presence like a vessel sailing through calm seas, steady and sure, but also somehow reverent of the elements through which it passes. The road levels out at what must be another high point, though the mist makes it impossible to judge the exact elevation or to see any of the views that might be available in clearer weather. Instead of visual grandeur, this passage through the high country offers something else. The pure experience of being enveloped by weather, of traveling through space that exists at the intersection of earth and sky, where ordinary rules about visibility and distance become fluid and uncertain. The bus pauses at a small pullout, perhaps to allow the engine to cool or simply to acknowledge the significance of the moment. Through the mist-shrouded windows, you sense rather than see the vastness that surrounds this high point. The silence that falls over the bus as the engine idles has a different quality from the comfortable quiet that has characterized most of the journey. It's the silence of high places, of spaces where the usual boundaries between human activity and natural forces become permeable. Even the rain sounds different here, perhaps because of the altitude, perhaps because of the way sound travels through the thin, moist air of the high country. The gentle percussion on the roof takes on undertones that suggest vast distances and open spaces, even though visibility extends only a few yards in any direction. It's as if the rain carries with it the voice of the mountains themselves, speaking in a language older than words about patience and persistence and the slow, inexorable processes that shape landscapes over geological time. After a few minutes, the bus resumes its journey, beginning the gradual descent toward the next valley. The road curves away from the high point and starts its patient navigation of switchbacks that will carry you down through different layers of atmosphere and weather. The mist begins to thin almost imperceptibly, and gradually the rain returns to the more substantial, though still gentle, precipitation that characterized earlier portions of the journey. As you descend, the forest begins to change character again. The trees become more varied in species, and the understory grows richer and more diverse. Everything continues to glisten with accumulated moisture, but now there's more light penetrating the canopy, creating a landscape that seems to glow with its own internal illumination. The rain has transformed every surface into something that catches and reflects light, from the smallest leaf to the largest tree trunk. The road follows a series of gentle curves as it descends, each turn revealing new perspectives on the rain-soaked mountainside. Small streams cross beneath the road, their voices audible through the floor of the bus as they hurry toward their eventual confluence with larger waters. These brief encounters with running water add another dimension to the acoustic environment of the journey, creating moments when the sound of moving water becomes the dominant element in the symphony of travel. A wooden sign appears through the thinning mist, marking the boundary of another protected area or perhaps simply indicating the elevation or the name of the pass you've just crossed. The bus passes beneath trees that form a natural archway over the road, their branches so heavy with accumulated rain that they release occasional drops onto the roof with sounds distinctly different from the lighter patter of rain falling directly from the sky. These larger drops create an irregular percussion that adds complexity to the acoustic environment without disturbing its essential peacefulness. The forest at this elevation has a cathedral-like quality even more pronounced than what you encountered earlier in the journey. The straight trunks of tall conifers rise like columns into the misty canopy above, creating vertical lines that seem to draw the eye upward toward whatever sky might exist beyond the low-hanging clouds. The spaces between the trees are filled with a green twilight that speaks of filtered light and persistent moisture, creating an environment that seems designed for contemplation and quiet reflection. Inside the bus, the profound tranquility that has characterized the latter part of the journey has deepened even further. The combination of reduced visibility outside and the increasingly intimate atmosphere inside has created a sense of traveling through a private world, separate from the ordinary concerns and schedules of daily life. The rain continues its gentle benediction, the engine maintains its steady purr, and the warm, humid air of the passenger compartment cradles you in comfort as the journey continues. The bus emerges from the densest part of the forest into a more open landscape where the thinning mist reveals glimpses of meadows and clearings created by some combination of natural processes and careful human management. These open spaces have been transformed by the rain into temporary wetlands where water stands in shallow pools that reflect whatever sky is visible through the clouds. The effect is of a landscape that has been temporarily returned to some earlier, more primal state, where the boundaries between water and land become fluid and negotiable. A small bridge carries the road across another stream, this one running full and fast with the accumulated runoff from the mountainsides above. The sound of water moving over rocks and around obstacles provides a moment of acoustic drama as the bus crosses. The liquid voice of the stream briefly overwhelming the gentler sounds of rain and engine before fading again as the road continues on the other side. The landscape begins to open up as the bus continues its descent, revealing broader views of the valley that lies ahead. Through the rain, you can see agricultural land that has been carefully adapted to work with rather than against the persistent moisture. Fields have been designed to handle seasonal flooding, with drainage systems that channel excess water in ways that nourish rather than damage crops. Farm buildings feature the deep overhangs and steep roofs that speak of architecture designed for wet climates, creating a sense of human habitation that works in harmony with rather than opposition to the weather patterns that define this region. The rain continues with the same gentle persistence, but now it seems less like a temporary weather event and more like a permanent feature of this landscape, as essential as the mountains themselves. The sound it makes has become as natural as breathing, a rhythm that seems to arise from the earth itself rather than from the temporary interaction of atmospheric conditions. The bus moves through this rain-soaked world like a ship sailing calm seas, its passengers carried safely and comfortably through weather that has transformed the ordinary into the extraordinary. As the bus approaches the floor of the valley, you begin to see signs of a larger settlement ahead. Lights twinkle through the rain, suggesting buildings and streets and the normal activities of a mountain community going about its evening business despite the weather. The warm illumination spilling from windows creates a welcoming glow that promises shelter and human companionship, the kind of place where travelers can rest and refresh themselves before continuing their journeys. But even as the end of this particular segment of the journey approaches, there's no sense of urgency or impatience among the passengers. The profound peace that has settled over the bus during the afternoon has created a state of mind where arrival and departure become less important than the simple experience of being peacefully carried through beautiful country in perfect weather. The rain that has been your constant companion has created a sense of timelessness, where minutes and hours become irrelevant compared to the deeper rhythms of weather and landscape. The bus navigates the outskirts of the settlement, passing houses and small businesses that show every sign of prosperous adaptation to wet mountain conditions. Gardens overflow with plants that clearly thrive in persistent moisture, and every building shows evidence of thoughtful design for a climate where rain is not an occasional visitor, but a permanent resident. People move about their evening activities with the same unhurried confidence that has characterized the bus driver's navigation of mountain roads, creating an impression of a community that has long since made peace with weather that others might find challenging. As the bus enters the town proper, you realize that this journey through rain-soaked mountains has provided something increasingly rare in modern life: the opportunity to travel slowly enough to notice details, to allow consciousness to settle into a peaceful rhythm that matches the pace of weather rather than the demands of schedules. The rain that might have seemed like an inconvenience has instead become the essential element that transformed ordinary transportation into something approaching meditation, creating conditions where the mind can rest and the spirit can be restored by the simple experience of moving peacefully through beautiful country. The bus comes to rest at what appears to be the main terminal for this mountain town, a covered area where passengers can disembark without getting soaked. Through the windows, you can see other buses and the comfortable suggestion of a waiting area where people sit quietly, some reading, others simply watching the rain fall beyond the shelter of the roof. The scene has the same peaceful, unhurried quality that has characterized the entire journey, suggesting a place where the rhythm of travel has been adapted to work with rather than against the natural pace of mountain weather. As you prepare to leave the bus, you realize that the journey has provided something unexpected and valuable. A reminder that some of the most restorative experiences come not from fighting against weather or rushing toward destinations, but from allowing ourselves to be carried peacefully through whatever conditions the world offers, finding beauty and meaning in the simple act of being present with rain and motion and the companionship of fellow travelers who understand the value of moving slowly through beautiful places. The rain continues its gentle benediction as passengers begin to gather their belongings, preparing to step out into the evening air of this mountain town. But the peace that has settled over the journey will travel with them, a reminder that sometimes the most profound experiences come not from dramatic events or spectacular destinations, but from the simple willingness to be fully present with whatever gifts the world offers. Even something as ordinary and extraordinary as a slow bus ride through the mountains in the rain. But perhaps this is not quite the end of your journey. Perhaps there is another bus waiting, another route through different mountains, another opportunity to surrender to the profound peace that comes from traveling slowly through rain-soaked country. You notice other passengers from your bus looking at departure boards, studying schedules, considering connections that might extend this experience of meditative travel. The terminal itself seems designed to accommodate this kind of unhurried decision-making. Comfortable benches face large windows that look out onto the rain-washed town, providing views of the mountain landscape that continues beyond the buildings and streets. The lighting is warm and gentle, creating an atmosphere that encourages reflection rather than hurried movement toward the next obligation. Even the sound environment supports contemplation. The rain on the roof provides a constant, soothing backdrop, while human voices remain appropriately subdued, respecting the peaceful energy that travelers carry with them from journeys through weather and landscape. You find yourself drawn to one of these windows, watching the rain as it continues to transform the town into something that seems to exist in a gentler, slower version of time. Street lights create pools of warm illumination that the rain fragments into countless tiny prisms. Cars move at measured speeds, their headlights cutting through the precipitation with a soft intensity that never seems harsh or urgent. People walk beneath umbrellas or simply accept the gentle soaking, their movements unhurried and purposeful rather than rushed or resistant. The mountain town has clearly adapted itself to this climate of persistent moisture in ways that go beyond mere practical accommodation. There's an aesthetic dimension to the adaptation, a recognition that rain can be beautiful as well as useful, that the constant presence of water in its various forms, falling, flowing, pooling, misting, creates opportunities for a different kind of beauty than what might be found in drier landscapes. Gardens visible through the terminal windows overflow with plants that clearly celebrate rather than merely tolerate the wet conditions. Architectural details like gutters and downspouts have been designed not just to manage water, but to create pleasing visual and auditory effects as rain moves through and around buildings. A departure board shows several options for continued travel. Buses heading deeper into the mountains, routes that follow river valleys toward distant cities, connections that would take you through different kinds of landscape under different conditions of weather and season. But none of these options seems urgent. The profound relaxation induced by the afternoon's journey has created a state of mind where decisions can be made slowly, where the next step can emerge naturally from careful consideration rather than from the pressure of schedules or the anxiety of being left behind. Another traveler approaches the window where you're standing, a woman perhaps in her 60s with silver hair and the kind of weathered face that speaks of a lifetime spent in mountain country. She nods toward the rain and offers a quiet comment about how perfect the weather has been for traveling, how the mountains seem to reveal their most beautiful aspects when shrouded in mist and washed by gentle precipitation. Her words carry the authority of someone who has experienced these landscapes in all seasons and all weather conditions, who understands that what visitors might see as less than ideal conditions often represent the mountains at their most authentic and revealing. The conversation that develops is conducted in the same measured tones that have characterized the entire afternoon, unhurried, thoughtful, with pauses that allow the sound of rain to fill the spaces between words. She speaks of other journeys through these mountains, of seasons when the rain gives way to snow and the landscape takes on yet another character, of spring days when the accumulated moisture of winter and fall emerges in countless waterfalls and streams that turn every hillside into a celebration of moving water. Her perspective adds another dimension to your understanding of the journey you've just completed. What felt like a single, complete experience now reveals itself as part of a larger pattern of seasonal and weather-related changes that transform these mountains throughout the year. The rain that has been your constant companion this afternoon is just one voice in a much larger conversation between weather and landscape that continues through all seasons, creating constantly changing but always harmonious relationships between water and earth, sky, and mountain. As you listen to her stories of other journeys, other weather conditions, other seasons in these same mountains, you begin to understand that the profound peace you've experienced today is not unique to this particular combination of rain and bus travel and mountain roads. Rather, it represents something that these landscapes offer consistently to those who approach them with the appropriate patience and respect, who allow themselves to be guided by the rhythm of weather and terrain rather than trying to impose their own pace and priorities on the natural world. The woman mentions a favorite route that follows a different river system through mountains that remain hidden in mist for days at a time, where the rain creates temporary waterfalls that appear and disappear with each storm, where the forest floor becomes a carpet of moss so thick and soft that walking on it feels like moving across a living cushion. Her description of this landscape makes it sound like a different world entirely, yet one that shares the essential characteristics of peace and beauty and gentle revelation that you've experienced this afternoon. She speaks too of the people who live in these mountains year-round, who have adapted their lives and worked to the rhythm of weather and season in ways that create a different relationship to time and productivity than what exists in places where climate is more predictable or controllable. These mountain dwellers, she suggests, understand something essential about the value of allowing natural conditions to guide human activity, about finding richness and meaning in adaptation rather than resistance. The conversation gradually fades into comfortable silence as you both return your attention to the rain falling beyond the windows of the terminal. The woman's presence beside you adds to rather than detracts from the meditative quality of watching weather, creating a sense of shared appreciation that requires no words. The rain continues its gentle percussion on various surfaces: the terminal roof, the streets outside, the leaves of trees that line the sidewalks, creating a complex but harmonious composition that seems to emerge naturally from the interaction of water with the built and natural environment. You notice that other travelers in the terminal have found their own ways of engaging with this transitional time between journeys. Some read quietly in comfortable chairs positioned to take advantage of the natural light filtering through rain-washed windows. Others have settled into what appears to be the kind of deep rest that comes after hours of being gently rocked by the motion of vehicles moving through beautiful country. A few have taken out journals or sketchbooks, perhaps trying to capture something of the day's experience in words or images. The overall atmosphere in the terminal mirrors what you experienced on the bus, a shared understanding that this time and place exists somewhat outside the normal pressures and schedules of daily life, creating space for the kind of quiet reflection and gentle rest that such schedules rarely accommodate. The rain outside serves as both a practical reason for lingering. Why hurry out into weather that encourages patience, and a continuing source of the kind of sensory experience that promotes deep relaxation? A food vendor near one corner of the terminal offers simple fare that seems perfectly adapted to this climate and this pace of travel. Hot soup that steams in ceramic bowls, bread that appears to have been baked locally, tea and coffee that fill the air with aromas suggesting comfort and warmth. The vendor operates with the same unhurried efficiency that characterized the bus driver, serving travelers with movements that are economical and sure but never rushed, creating an atmosphere of hospitality that feels generous rather than commercial. You find yourself drawn to the idea of a cup of something warm, not from any urgent need, but from the simple pleasure of extending the afternoon's experience of comfort and gentle stimulation of the senses. The process of ordering and receiving your drink becomes part of the overall meditation on slowness and presence. Each action, the exchange of money, the careful preparation of the beverage, the first sip of something perfectly suited to the cool, moist air, contributing to the sense that this entire experience exists in a different relationship to time than ordinary life typically permits. The warmth of the cup in your hands creates a pleasant contrast to the coolness of the air near the windows, and the steam rising from the liquid adds another small element to the sensory environment that has been so carefully cultivated throughout the day. The taste of the drink, perhaps tea with honey or coffee with a hint of cinnamon, provides a flavor counterpoint to the visual and auditory experiences that have dominated the journey, adding another layer of satisfaction to this time of rest and reflection. As you return to your position by the window, drink in hand, you become aware of how the simple act of standing still and watching rain has become a form of active meditation, requiring no special techniques or training, but simply the willingness to allow attention to rest gently on the immediate sensory experience of being in this place at this time. The rain provides a perfect focus for this kind of attention. Constant enough to be reliable, varied enough to prevent boredom, beautiful enough to reward careful observation. The patterns that rain creates on the window glass become increasingly complex and fascinating as you watch. Individual droplets follow paths that seem random, but that actually reflect invisible currents of air and the microscopic topography of the glass surface. Some drops race straight down, others pause and accumulate mass before continuing their journey. Still others join with their neighbors to form larger streams that carve temporary channels through the collected moisture. These patterns change constantly but never dramatically, creating the kind of gentle visual stimulation that supports rather than disrupts the deep relaxation that has settled over the afternoon. Watching them becomes a form of moving meditation, where the mind can rest in the simple act of following these liquid pathways without any need to analyze or categorize or predict what will happen next. The light filtering through the rain-covered windows has a particular quality that seems designed to promote this kind of gentle contemplation. It's soft without being dim, diffused without losing its essential clarity, creating an illumination that flatters everything it touches while never being harsh enough to strain the eyes or create sharp contrasts that might disturb the peaceful atmosphere. As the afternoon continues its gradual transition toward evening, this light begins to take on an even warmer tone, but the persistent cloud cover makes it difficult to judge the exact time. The rain continues with the same gentle consistency, neither increasing nor decreasing, maintaining the perfect intensity for this kind of meditative observation. The sound it makes as it strikes various surfaces, glass, metal, wood, fabric, creates a complex but harmonious acoustic environment that seems to encourage the mind to settle into deeper and deeper levels of quiet. Other travelers continue to move through the terminal at the same measured pace that has characterized the entire experience, some departing for connections to other destinations, others arriving to begin their own journeys through these rain-soaked mountains. The ebb and flow of human presence adds another gentle rhythm to the space, creating the sense of being part of a larger community of people who have chosen this slower, more contemplative form of travel. A bus pulls up outside, its headlights cutting through the rain with a soft intensity that suggests readiness for another journey into the mountains. The sight of it creates no sense of urgency. There will be other buses, other opportunities to experience the particular magic of traveling slowly through beautiful country and perfect weather. Instead, it serves as a reminder that this experience of profound peace and gentle motion through rain-soaked landscapes is available to anyone willing to adjust their pace and expectations to match the rhythm of weather and mountain roads. The woman who shared her stories of mountain travel approaches again, this time to mention that her own connection will be departing soon. She expresses gratitude for the opportunity to share observations about the day's weather and travel conditions, and her words carry the particular warmth that comes from recognition of shared experience. As she gathers her belongings and moves toward the departure area, her presence becomes part of the day's larger meditation on the value of human connection that emerges naturally from shared appreciation of beautiful places and gentle weather. The terminal continues to provide its quiet sanctuary for travelers making the transition between journeys, between the meditative experience of moving slowly through rain-soaked mountains and whatever destinations or activities await beyond this protected space. The rain outside continues its gentle benediction, connecting this moment with all the moments of peaceful travel that preceded it, creating a sense of continuity that extends beyond the boundaries of any single journey. As you continue to watch the rain through the large windows, you realize that the afternoon has provided something increasingly rare in modern life. The opportunity to experience time as something other than a resource to be managed or a pressure to be endured. Instead, time has become a medium for experiencing beauty and peace, a space within which consciousness can settle into its most natural and restorative configuration. The rain that has been your constant companion has created this gift of altered time, transforming ordinary transportation into something approaching pilgrimage, ordinary weather into a source of profound beauty, ordinary strangers into temporary companions in the ancient human practice of moving peacefully through the world. The sound of it continues on the terminal roof, a gentle reminder that this experience of peace and restoration is always available to those willing to adjust their pace to match the rhythm of weather and landscape. To find meaning and beauty in the simple act of being fully present with whatever gifts the world offers. The warm drink in your hands, the soft light filtering through rain-washed windows, the gentle murmur of voices in the terminal, the persistent but never overwhelming sound of precipitation. All of these elements combine to create a moment that feels complete in itself while also serving as a bridge to whatever experiences might follow. The rain continues, patient and persistent, offering its particular form of beauty to anyone willing to receive it, creating conditions for the kind of deep peace that restores something essential in the human spirit.